If you're a business owner or senior manager, you probably had more than enough about all the wonderful opportunities awaiting you in the era of digitalization.
Whether it is big data, cloud, data science, or whatever buzzword is currently trendy.
If you would like to hear someone dissecting these claims and showing you what it actually takes to improve business processes, you're in the right place.
This is Between Data and Risk, where we discuss real-life examples of what works and what doesn't in the world of business operations.
Hi, I'm your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian Siwiak, and with me is my co-host, Artur Buja, Cognition Shared Solutions Chief Risks and Strategy Officer.
Hello.
Welcome to the 7th episode of Between Data and Risk. Today, we will be talking about the function of data and risk in management of higher education institutions. With us is Dr. Nick Swane. He is a president of North Idaho College. Until recently, he was the executive director of For Virginia, a collaborative partnership between 8 universities in the state of Virginia, as well as a founder of comprehensive academic innovation ecosystem at James Madison University, who agreed to share some of his experience with us.
Good morning.
I think the first things first, congratulations are in order. Dr. Swane became president of North Idaho College in August this year. So,
That's right. August 1st.
How do you feel? Because I know that you spent a lot of time with James Madison. So how do you feel after such a big move?
Well, it's a big change, but it is it's a great place. It's the people are wonderful, the students are wonderful. I think it was a great next move for me to be able to implement some of the things I learned while I was at James Madison and help move the college forward. So I think it's a really nice fit. I've enjoyed it a lot so far in the last 7 weeks.
No, it's great to hear. Like, what new and fresh ideas did you encounter in your new job? We are thinking about the, let's say, business operations. Like, mm-hmm. What is that North Idaho College surprised you pleasantly with? Is there anything like, wow, we should do this in James Madison? Why we didn't do it?
I'd say the biggest thing is that I've noticed is there were a few. So our enrollment has been declining over the past few years, and folks just didn't take ownership of that. And so when we look at the data and say, okay, we've had several years of declining enrollments, what are we doing? And we've done the same thing every year, and just kind of asking those questions, everyone has stepped up and said, oh, you're right. The enrollment is declining. We really need to do something about it. And so just asking those questions of people and having them contemplate the issue and how really everyone on campus has a role in that is very interesting. We're a 2-year college, and so the things about aligning curriculum so that students can transfer more easily to the 4-year college. We do just a lot of programs and making sure that we go back and review those periodically so that they're doing what we expect them to do, and the data necessary to analyze those is challenging. From data perspective, we are at the state and federal level, they use the same metric, very similar metrics, to evaluate our effectiveness that they use to evaluate a 4-year institution's effectiveness. And so, for example, they look at how many freshmen matriculate to sophomores, how many sophomores matriculate to juniors, and so forth. That's a typical 4-year kind of metric. And for us, our students come here, some of them determined to get a 2-year degree. Mm-hmm. Some of them come determined to get to complete some requirements of a 4-year degree and then transfer. And so for them, success means taking 5 math courses and then transferring to a 4-year. Well, so they don't get an associate's degree from us, and the state and federal government don't count that as a success. It actually counts against us. Where the student, we exactly met their needs. We exactly supported them, gave them what they needed to be successful. They went on to the 4-year institution and they were successful, but it counts as almost as a negative against us because they didn't complete their associate's degree. They never set out to complete their associate's degree. And so those kinds of things, trying to figure out what are the real metrics of success, and how do we measure them, and how do we hold ourselves accountable to them, is one of our big data challenges right now.
It reminds me, there is a book called Weapons of Math Destruction, and there is a notion on algorithmic measurement of success of teachers. I think it was in New York or Washington, where we tried to put the same identical variables just to evaluate if the teacher is good or not. And what was found out that the teachers who were inflating grades of their pupils were evaluated much higher because 90% of my students ended up with A grades. And the students, let's say, if the students went to another school, they were normalized, so to speak, and it was taken against the teachers. Like you cannot teach like the students had A grades and now they are I don't know, B's or C's. So how it happens? So this is a terrible lack of thinking about what data really means. We spoke about it in our previous episodes. It's like the step one of any data journey is like think what is really behind the data. But on the operational level, like of your university, like on how the work is organized, like what is the pleasant surprise? I don't want to jump directly into problems. Because let's light up the mood a little bit before we will muddy the waters.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the things that I was really pleasantly surprised at, we have several things, but one is at a 2-year institution, I was surprised at the advanced level of math. So they have all the standard stuff that you would expect at a 2-year institution, the college algebra, that sort of thing. But then on top of that, they have what we call Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, differential equations, linear algebra, and discrete math. And so having all 6 or 7 of those courses available for students is an incredible opportunity for them to be here. It's very low cost because students, most of them are able to stay at home while they're taking college classes, so they don't have to pay extra for room and board. And our tuition is about half of what a 4-year institution is. So it's incredibly economical. And for those students that want to be in any of the sciences, physics, math, or engineering, or even biology or biotech, or any of those kinds of math intensive disciplines, they can do everything they need to do here in terms of the math stuff with full-time faculty, class sizes of probably 15 or so, and then transfer to the 4-year institution and do better in their upper division courses than the students that started in the 4-year institutions, because they're able to, they have a tighter learning relationship with their professors. So that's one. And the second thing is our nursing, our health professions is incredibly strong, and we have waiting lists in almost every area for students trying to get in. And we're for various reasons, not able to accommodate all the students that want to participate. On top of that, huge demand in the community for those health science degrees. So those are a couple of the things. I mean, we have some incredible state of the art facilities that, I thought it was pretty good back in my lab in Virginia, but the facilities they have here are really take it to another level. So those are some of the operational things that I've seen already.
So how when we talk about these facilities, I think it's a huge logistic and operational efficiency required to ensure, let's say, smart use of the budget to really get into that level, which fitting, let's say, very, very renowned and rightfully so institution.
Yeah.
So seems like your people really know what they are doing. Like, can you tell us how is this organized? Like, do you have some, I don't know, standard operating procedures, or people just know what to do? They are really long-term employees who are living and breathing the atmosphere, and they just try to do best for their college and community by that.
So I think it's the second thing. I mean, we've there have been a lot of retirements, so a lot of the institutional knowledge has left. But in terms of making sure the facilities are here and ready and well positioned, and we have no debt, so that's another good aspect of things. So just I think it's been strategically well managed, even if some of the operational things. I think they've done some planning on things like recruiting. Mm-hmm. They've done some planning. They never, for whatever reason, some of it just didn't get implemented. But in terms of facilities and faculty, we've had some the facilities are incredible, in great condition. And we've had great administrators and faculty that are on the job. And so I don't think it's a procedure thing. I think it's a people thing.
It sounds like a great group of people to work with. As I've been preparing for this episode, because I have to admit I have in my experience as risk manager, I haven't actually encountered higher education or education in general as an area for risk management. So I did some research. I found the University Risk Management and Insurance Association in US, which sounds like a great organization. They're actually running a podcast, Urmia Matters. And I listened to that podcast about all the way risk is actually perceived in higher education, and how, especially what caught my attention is their episode about emerging risk, where they talk about how they add to their risk inventory things like very, very recent things, cutting edge things like cryptocurrencies, AI, the autonomous vehicles. How do you work with risk in your institute?
Well, so I have a risk manager. My admin and finance vice president also does manages risk, and so I don't know that we are necessarily looking at things like autonomous vehicles and AI in incorporating that into our risk management, but there are other like human resource issues that I think are maybe unique to higher ed, where you have professors, and if a professor does something wrong, and then you may be you may have legal issues with the students. And then if you discipline the professor, you may have legal issues with the professor. So those are I don't know if they're unique to higher education, but maybe unique to state higher ed institutions. Like state supported higher ed institutions are held to a bit different standard than private higher ed institutions. So that may be maybe one of our more important considerations. We're also they call it a tree campus or something, that we have a lot of trees on campus. And I guess about a year ago, long before I got here, they had a huge. It had rained a lot, and they had a huge windstorm come through. And when I'm say trees, they're trees that are 1.5 meters in diameter and 30 meters tall. And so when the wind came through and knocked those trees down, it created like 100 unique trees on campus. It blocked roads. I think only one building was seriously damaged, but it knocked out power, blocked a whole bunch of roads, and so cleaning that up was a huge mess. So from a risk perspective, that was huge. Our IT department is also an area that requires some risk assessment, because just today, I think I had 3 phishing attacks, three phishing emails, or
Mm-hmm.
click here for something in it, and luckily I didn't click on it, but someone, anybody else on campus may have gotten that same email and clicked on it. I don't, sometimes they're harmless, and sometimes they, end up with everyone on campus having their computers locked down, and you have to pay ransom. So all those kinds of things are serious risk considerations that are things we have to take into account.
However, still, I think that the surprisingly, your sponsor is also creating risks. I'm still thinking about these measurements, which are not really well designed to represent what you do. Is there any way for you to, I don't know, appeal or like create enough buzz that lawmakers would, actually reconsider what they do? Because it sounds for me, I don't want to say criminal, but I just did.
Well, I don't know. I can't. I won't. I don't know what it would take to change the law. What we're going to do is just something different. Is try to start defining our metrics of success ourselves, and part of that then requires a database. So if a student comes in and says, I want to take these math courses so that I can transfer, I don't want to complete an associate's degree, I just want to take those math courses, then we can enter that as a data traceable goal, and then measure his success against his goals, and not against an artificial goal that he had never had any intentions of accomplishing to begin with. And so he, if somebody comes in and gets an A in all of those math courses, Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, then you obviously they're good students. So the fact that they didn't complete their associate's degree, it shouldn't count against us. But right now we don't have data, that we're not able to collect data that says, here's a student's goal, and we help them accomplish that. And so that's one of the projects that I'm working on to try to figure that out.
This story reminds me, I've been studying biology myself, and there were some measurements done on equipment which returned some charts, graphs, and the actual comparison between 2 samples was should be the calculus of the area under the curve. And biology students, at least where I was studying, were not so strong at calculus.
Yeah.
However, they designed the ingenious method. They were printing out the charts, cutting them out, and weighing them. So that's but it works. So when you said that you have these people who are taking the Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, discrete maths, differentials, and then they go to the biology. I'm not sure how many, except me, at my course actually knew calculus. But
you can Google it now.
When you mention all those math courses, I get shivers because I used to study computer science and we had all those, and it still brings back memories. Although I stopped screaming at night with a lot of therapy, it's still there at the back of the head. I have to admit, but it brings us to a kind of a very interesting topic, actually. How you actually measure skill and how do you measure success in education? Because when you're an educator, it's I think you want to see that a person actually has received the education. You don't only want to give education, but you also want to see it received. So,
if I may, I think we've heard the podcast about it. It was, I think, the EdTech podcast by Sophie Bailey in this year. I think it was about measuring the skill and how do you measure skills. It's pretty interesting topic. Like, what's your Nick take on it? Like, how do you measure the skill? Because I know that you have this facility also training people, like adult training in this also practical skills. I wouldn't want to stop here in our discussion on calculus, but I think it's really important role of education to provide the skills which are applicable in real life, unlike some complicated math.
Yeah, that becomes a challenge because determining what is Calc 1 is an ongoing debate, I suppose, but it's also for the most part settled.
Mm-hmm.
If you say I've completed Calc 1, there's an expectation that this package of material. If you say you've completed Calc 2, I've completed this package of material. If you say that you've completed a competency-based test, and through competency-based testing, I'm now qualified as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
That should give you a certain skills, right? That you've
yeah, it's not I'd say the challenge is it's not necessarily clear from that statement because there's not a clear understanding of what that means and what you've proven and what so if it's a written test or a computer-based test, and you can describe or you can read the test question that says, how do you give somebody an injection? How do you give somebody an IV? Insert an IV, and it's a Q&A set of responses, and that person passes the test now they're a certified nurse through competency-based testing. They may never have done any of those practical things, right? I mean, it would be odd, but it is possible. I can prove that I'm competent by taking a test.
Mm-hmm.
Now, many of those would require a skills demonstration as well. So you pass the written test, and then you have to do a physical demonstration that you can do it. So I'm much more comfortable with having both. But how would you like to, how would you like it if your surgeon was going to, do open heart surgery, and they were a competency-based education surgeon, and you don't know for sure if that surgeon has actually ever cracked open a chest or not? You may be the first. And so it's not just when you're taking a class and everyone in the class is doing the same thing, the doing is evaluated. The knowledge is evaluated. And so you can, maybe argue back and forth about what people did and what and the way you tested that on a written test, but you could do a recording and watch it and say, okay, I understand what your people are doing. Here's what my people are doing, and you can compare. But not all competency-based testing is like that. So those are some challenges with the competency-based programs.
Out of curiosity, because you have this technological education as well.
Yep.
Do you know how is the organized the cooperation with the industry? Because I'm a big fan of supporting the environment. I know that many of educational institutions in the US, they pride themselves in cooperation with local businesses, with local industry. How does it look in Idaho?
So I'm actually the number of businesses and industries that are partnered with North Idaho College is at least as good as what it was in Virginia. I was quite pleasantly surprised. Just everything is we have it here. I think it in many ways. The local industry, local businesses, and the community are more engaged than they were in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's. I'm pretty happy with the way things are turning out.
So I'm guessing that link then gives you the opportunity to actually show the students and give not only show the students, but actually give them some hands-on experience, so that they get not only the competency-based testing on paper or on the computer, but also the practical skills, which then can be fed back into the educational institution to find out how they're actually performing in the real world.
Ideally, yeah. Say for example, nursing. There are other institutions around us that also are competing for the same practical experiences, and so there's competition there. There's also a challenge because we are a 2-year institution. We only have the students for 2 years, and so building programs that allow them to finish their associate's degree and have a competency base and have a real world experience downtown. That's a lot to fit into just 2 years. And most of the students that I was working with back in Virginia were, they'd already completed their first 2 years of college, and we first started working with them when they were juniors and seniors. And so when they're juniors and seniors, they are already getting discipline specific knowledge, where the first 2 years is often more general education. And so a junior or senior that has some, say, engineering experience as a student, and you send them downtown to work on an engineering like project, they're going to be more valued by the company. And, for us, typically in the first 2 years of a engineering focused program, we would be teaching a lot of math, because that's what they need in order to transfer to the 4-year institution. So it's not always as easy. It goes back to that, the things you measure. If you until you're really here and thinking about it from a 2-year perspective, sometimes what we have learned as 4-year people, that doesn't always work in a 2-year institution.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
That sounds like a big challenge.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Like, I know that many educational institutions, but again, now I'm not sure if it applies to 2 years. So please correct me. But they try to encourage young people to start their own businesses, to help them get the first steps or second, third steps in the entrepreneurship area. How does it work there? Or, if you were to compare this to James Madison.
Another interesting question.
We try.
at JMU, I probably had maybe 5,000 square feet of space that was dedicated to kind of a maker space kind of thing with classrooms attached. And here, it's an old diesel mechanic shop that they've converted into an innovation lab. It's probably 10 or 15,000 square feet of big, just open space. And there's another 5,000 square feet that we have funding set aside to renovate. And once we figure out what that needs or what those needs might be. And so, again, we have better facilities, and as a result of the facilities, more opportunities to do more interesting things. We are constrained by the fact that we only have most students here for 2 years, and so they may not be ready after 2 years to start their own business. They may want to go on to a 4-year, but so most of our clients in our innovation center tend to be community clients. So they've gone somewhere, they've done something, they've got educated, or maybe they're just curious. I think I can make a better mousetrap, for example. So they can come here and make that better mousetrap. See if it works. See if they can pitch it to anybody and get any funding to make more. Sell them. Give you 1,000 mousetraps, whatever the case may be. Usually it's not production. It's usually selling of the intellectual property and the processes. So those are that's what we have now, and trying to figure out how do we grow that, because we're not going to have a 4-year program. We have great space. We have good facilities, most good equipment in the facilities. What we don't have is that class wraparound that we had back at JMU with juniors and seniors that are thinking about those kinds of issues and how they might, by the end of the class, they've already done customer discovery. They've already done all those steps. They presented 100 times, and they have real buy-in from somebody in the community. But oftentimes the students back at JMU were really just interested in going on and working for Deloitte, working for Microsoft, whatever the case may be. And so it was tough. Here, we don't have those challenges, but we have other challenges. Just it's not because the kids are doing great, but it's not like most of them don't have big ideas of going directly from the 2-year institution to go work for Deloitte as a consultant. They'll have to, transfer the 4-year, whatever. So there's other delays, and the fact that we only have them for 2 years. Those are big challenges.
When you mentioned mousetraps, we couple episodes ago we had a conversation with a gentleman who's investing in startups, and he was telling us about a gentleman who was mechanical engineer, then transferred to computer scientist, who was living off intellectual property rights, and he came to pitch the new type of a dog toy with some smartly enclosed snack which the dog could try to chew out. So the new kind of mousetrap is actually I was using one when I was living in the UK. We had mice around, and we, despite having 2 cats, and it was this non-lethal mousetraps. I think it's a great invention. So I guess there is space for that. I wouldn't underestimate the power of a good mousetrap.
Yeah.
But there is, talking about this, and especially about when you say that the 3rd and 4th year students they had all this additional experience that allowed them to go out into the world and start thinking about making a business or working in business. It brings me to a kind of interesting complaint that I heard from various people in the business, that students, when they leave an educational institution, they see everything in black and white. There are laws of science. Everything everything works. You put things into an experiment, and always the result comes out. And they emerge into this wild world of uncertainty, like beautiful butterflies. And how so? How would you challenge this with the students? How do you introduce them into the world of uncertainty?
Well, we haven't started that yet here. Back at JMU, we used the lean startup method, just kind of design thinking and lean startup mixed together, and we would start them off, trying to solve a problem and showing them that not solving the problem is okay, but you have to learn from your mistakes. And so if there's and I think that's probably the biggest value add that we can identify, is that we don't encourage students to fail, but we do encourage them to try things that might work, and take a bit of risk in that, and say, okay, this is not, it's not physically impossible. We've engineered it. We think we can make it work. Let's give it a try. Nope, it failed. So we don't encourage them to try to fail. We encourage them to learn through their failures, and push the failures to come fast, and let them know it's okay. And we don't expect that it's okay that it doesn't work. It's okay that it doesn't work the first time. It's okay that it doesn't work after the third time. We actually expected that. We gave you a really hard problem for a reason. And so all those things combined are really, I think, the key to what we've done. And I'll also say, back in Virginia, we got to a point where employers were calling me, trying to get, I need an engineer that's gone through your program. I need a biology student I need a writing student that's gone through your program. And they're doing that because, it's not like our students, it's not like the engineering students come into our program and know more about engineering. What they do know about is how to work together on a multidisciplinary team, take risk, try to figure stuff out, and continue to adapt as members of a productive team. And I think ultimately that's what the employers were looking for. So then, my current challenge is, how do we do that here at a 2-year institution? I think it's possible. It's just going to take it's going to take finding the right person. I'm not going to run it. I'm not going to run it. So it's trying to clearly define that the role of that person, and finding somebody that can pull it off with guidance and support, but not with me running it. So those are some of the short-term, maybe long-term issues that we're working on to make that happen.
It reminds me, it's a quote. It's not about it being right or wrong. It's about looking at the implications. This is something that got my real interest in another podcast, Teaching in Higher Ed, by Bonnie Stachowiak. It was David Cormier from Pittsburgh, professor from Pittsburgh, who said, so it's about this thinking in scenarios. Okay, so I'll try this, and what happens if I fail? And this is the base of multiple, let's say, we spoke about risk previously, but it's, I think, the very basis of the risk management is, okay, we have this scenario, and let's think what happens if this scenario goes left, right, or center.
Right.
It's I must say that I'm really impressed that you managed to introduce it to your students, because in my research work, especially in biology, people are so keen on getting this false feeling of certainty by clinging to p-value like no tomorrow, like applying p-value hacking and doing everything in their power to get this statistical significance, just to get
That's
this
right.
false feeling of certainty. So really chapeau bas for being able to teach students to, as in example in engineering, where you would expect, okay, I have two cogs when they roll together, when, one is rotating, another is rotating. Introducing an uncertainty there, I'm truly and really impressed.
And
Yeah.
especially since we talked about how you measure success, I think that's a good measure of success. If industry people, commercial people actually come to you and say, we want students that actually have this kind of mentality, that means I think that's a measure for success. They actually succeeded. Another thing interesting is a parallel, because my until recently I used to work for HSBC. And there's quite a lot of kind of innovation mindset being promoted within HSBC, and this kind of almost encouragement to fail. Try things and make them fail, because you're expected to fail the first X amount of time, and then before you come up with something worthwhile. So even it goes a bit further. But this kind of this mentality seems to be something that people are reinventing almost, because in education, in business, people are getting back to the idea that you don't have to be always right, and failure is also an opportunity to educate yourself, to find something new, and get good data.
Yeah, that's true, and I think the technology world in which we live gives you the sense that there's always one right answer. Right? You can Google it, and there's one right answer. You can do whatever. There's one right answer, and I think it sort of confounds a lot of people to find out that there are 5 good answers, and you get to pick which one worked best for you. We just want you to explain how you found it, how you got there, how you replicate it, and what are the implications? I mean, those are kind of the thing that becomes more important now than the product itself.
I wonder, because I also know that you have a military background. Just out of curiosity, is it something that is taught in the army as well, in American army, that try things like observe, adapt, overcome? Is it how? Because I'm thinking, where is the source? Because I find your attitude a bit unique. Working in I was lecturing myself at the university for 7 years. So working in research and higher education industry, your attitude towards failure, most of the courses are you have a test, you have one good answer. If you ask a question, you already know the answer to it before it starts, before you even open your mouth, and you just expect people to. Which reminds me of when you analyze, I don't know, the literature, what did the author think about, what did he had in mind. I wonder, because I'm looking for a source of your pretty unique approach, and
I think maybe how I grew up, and I mean, it's that, and the I think that maybe the difference between higher education and the army is you have in the army, maybe you have a mission, and you need to accomplish this mission by tomorrow evening, whatever the case may be, and so you have a fixed, you have the resources that are available right now, and so you never have all the things you want. You never have all the things you need. You don't have all the people that you want, but you still got to accomplish the mission. And so you kind of use your experience, ask questions, test hypotheses, move forward, and see. Okay, you get to a point where you say, "Okay, this isn't going to work. We have to try something else." I'm not sure that educators always have that same mentality. For example, when we started the autonomous vehicle course, I would say it was really interesting to watch it happen. Now, of course, our autonomous vehicle was a golf cart, right? So, that was a part of our risk management was if you have a golf cart, it only goes 6 miles an hour. It doesn't matter what doesn't matter what you do. The fastest it can go is 6 miles an hour, and so it's not going to go 100 miles an hour. It's not going to get if it gets away from us, you can run it. You can run after it and tip it over if you have to stop it as a sort of emergency procedure. So people were a lot more willing to let us try things. But also there's no room, it's nothing is automated. Everything is manual. So there's no power steering, there's no power brakes. So being able to hack in the system to control that turned out to be a pretty complicated process. So the students came in and, they told their parents that, we're going to build an autonomous car during the spring semester. You plan on coming down to visit in May and looking at our autonomous car. And so they had this mark that they had set for themselves, this high expectations that they had set for themselves. And they had told their parents that we're going to build an autonomous car. On the flip side, the faculty, well, okay, we know the students have said that. However, we're not sure we're going to get there. And if we don't get it done this semester, we'll do it next semester. And the students were like, no, that's not okay. I told my mom to come in May and look at the autonomous vehicle. We are going to have an autonomous vehicle in May. And so I found them, they would come in on Friday and work and they would tell everybody, hey, we're going to work late tonight. Just go home. We'll lock up when we're done. And it turned out they stayed there and worked throughout the weekend. They brought in cots and would sleep in the lab, or, periodically over the weekend, because they were determined to have an autonomous vehicle by May. And so that's that instilling that attitude in the students, not just a curiosity, not just of, maybe it'll work, but that attitude that, we're determined to make it work, allows it actually is more freeing. It gives you the opportunity to say, we don't know all the answers, but we're going to make this work by May. And so let's try this. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try this. That didn't work. And they accumulate very quickly a couple of things. They understand really how things work. They understand, also helpful, what doesn't work. They understand troubleshooting, which is a skill that I think that's one of the things that the employers valued most, is the students coming out of my program knew how to troubleshoot, and the students coming out of some of the other programs, the more traditional programs on campus, didn't know how to troubleshoot because they were never challenged to do that. And so some of those things, so where does that come from? I'm not 100% sure. Just my background, my parents pushed us to go try things, and obviously they didn't know it work. And okay, if that didn't work, go fix it and then try again. You broke it, now you got to fix it. And going. So I think that from that, from my experience throughout my life, that was kind of. But I know a lot of people like that. I don't know a whole lot of folks in higher ed that have that perspective.
The last question, if I may. Do you treat your employees the same way as you treat students?
Absolutely.
How much freedom do they have to fail?
Absolutely. which is kind of interesting as well, because when you first meet them, they want the same kind of guidance and planning and I said there are a lot of things that we have to work on here. We have to work on them simultaneously, and we don't have time to fix them all. We don't have time to make a master plan and fix everything at the same time. So I've said I want you to we're figuring out what needs to be fixed. You know who you need to coordinate with, and don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. And so now when I have meetings, we talk about things, and okay, here's a good course of action, and you ask them, what do you think? And they'll now people say, well, it might not be perfect, but it's good enough. We can at least get started and start to make progress, and we'll figure out where, if it doesn't work, we'll figure that out and go in a different direction. And so it didn't, this is only week 7 for me. Giving them the authority to move forward in that direction, I think is absolutely, it's most of these folks are really bright, smart, dedicated people, and they never felt that they had the authority to do things that way. And so I think they're responding really well. We'll see how it goes.
I'm pretty sure it will go well. Like I'm afraid that people will be trying to poach your people as they were trying to get your students pretty soon.
No, we have I try to encourage people to try it. An example of signs. The signage on campus is not where it should have been. And they said, we had meetings a couple of years ago. We had meetings. A committee formed to look at signs. We met for 2 years. Nobody could agree, so we just stopped meeting. And so I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. There is already a sign out front. It's not adequate. It doesn't tell what's inside. It just said the name of the building. So I want you to make a prototype of the sign that you think should be there and put it there. And it took them a lot longer than I expected. It was, and so it's also very conventional. It's very traditional. And so, but they got it. They finally got it. They felt encouraged by that. And I said, okay, has anybody complained? No. All right. Well, then it's okay. I said I was looking for something a little more creative, but fine. If this sign reflects what you need and it's fine, then let's make that your sign. And so it's a small thing, but no one was allowed to do that kind of work. And so hopefully we start to make a difference in that way. Yeah.
Baby steps, as they say, and I admire the attitude that I think it encourages both your students and your employees to never stop learning, which is the kind of the open-mindedness that I think is very important for any success.
Yeah, good.
Okay,
I think, Arthur, if you don't have any questions.
Yeah, I think this is all we have time for. As always, let's hope it was of use to somebody.
Thank you for listening.
To find out more about the University Risk Management and Insurance Association, go to urmia.org, where you'll find more resources and a community of almost 2,700 members from the risk profession.
We also mentioned the Learning in Uncertainty, an episode of the Teaching in Higher Ed podcast where the host Boris Stachowiak talks to Dave Cormier, learning specialist, about his work in helping students learn in uncertainty.
Finally, check out the Tech Ed podcast. Sophie Bailey runs this podcast with a mission to improve the dialogue between ed and tech through storytelling. She has an excellent episode talking about what is skill and how should we measure it. Be sure to listen to it. As usual, the links to all these resources will be in the notes to this episode.
Also, don't miss the next one, where we'll be talking about the concept of federated governance models and how they can help decentralize decision-making without sacrificing structure and accountability.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or visit bdr.show to find out more about future episodes and guests. You can also check out cognition.llc for more information on Cognition shared solutions, our services, and other events hosted by us.
For now, it's thank you from myself, your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian Siwiak, and my co-host, Artur Guja.
Thank you.